Welcome back. Sticking with the welder theme, I thought that I might do a bit of a video on this one. This is our SIG weld Transmig 165. We've had this for about 10 years or so. I actually got it off of a scrap heap. It had burnt the lead, the torch lead, up from right from here, right up to the handpiece, was completely melted away. And the owner said it was no good, so they threw it on the scrap heap. It lied on my mate's scrap heap for about 12 months in the weather. Fortunately, because it was so dry that year, we didn't get much moisture into the electronics on it or into the transformer. I fetched it home and did a bit of work on it, put a few parts in it, and we managed to get it going. But we've done a lot of modifications to it since, which is going to be the main part of the video, because it's no longer just a MIG welder for steel. It now can weld aluminium, and it has two hand pieces or two torches on it, which is a bit different. How they managed to burn it, there was nothing wrong with the transformer or anything in it. How they managed to burn that cable all the way along it, I marvel at the level of stupidity. It really impresses me. The original cables inside where you change the polarity were connected onto the power studs with these plastic brass inserted thumb wheels. So that's one. The other one, that's all that was left of it. It even melted the plastic thumb part, knurled part, off of it. So anyway, we'll just run through a bit on the front here, what we've changed. This welder never had a Euro connection on it. It's a direct connect torch. So up here we had to replace all this to put another new direct connect torch on it. So that is very close to how the original one mounted in there, and the same as it mounts on the inside, you'll see in a minute near the drive rollers. But over here, just so you can see it, there's a switch here now that we put in, and there's another outlet here, as well as the main earth, your work earth down here. This one here is for the spool gun. As I said, this now runs two torches. It runs a spool gun on this one and an ordinary torch on this one. This is a double pole, double throw toggle switch with a center off. So when the toggle switch is up, we have power to the torch here. When the switch is down, we have power to the spool gun. When the switch is in the neutral, we don't have power anywhere. All that switch does is select which trigger triggers the drive motor. It does not switch any kind of high current, the welding current, nor does it switch anything to do with the AC side of the welder. This is a DC. Power supply comes off the transformer inside, so that's just an ordinary DC toggle switch. I don't advocate anyone does this unless you know what you're doing, so that you can test whether the supplies are AC or DC. This is just how I got around a problem. The reason we did this with the spool gun was because I don't have an AC-DC TIG, and I don't have any other way of welding aluminium. I am not an aluminium welder. But I had a job that I needed to tack together in aluminium so that it could be sent to an aluminium welder to finish the job. So I needed a way of tacking it together, and the best way that I could come up with was to try and convert this MIG to weld aluminium. After a lot of trial and error, I had a fair while to do the job. After a lot of trial and error, I ended up being able to tack the job together, but I also ended up being able to finish the job in-house. So I'm by no means an expert aluminium welder, but I got the job well and truly good enough for that job, and everything was fine. And the welder's just stayed set up like that ever since. I need to change it back. It's still set up to weld aluminium, so on the inside you have to change the polarity on this one because it hasn't got a Euro torch. It's still set up to weld aluminium, so the polarity is set to weld aluminium. I need to change it later on back to the polarity for an ordinary MIG to run flux wire, so gasless wire, because for the Ford motor that's sitting here for the tractor, we need to do a few little brackets and things on the boring stand so that we've got mounts in the right place to hold the boring bar onto the engine and things like that. And it'll be easier to do it with the MIG than with the stick. 80% of our work we do with stick, but when it comes to tacking up jobs and things, the MIG is much easier, particularly if you've got to get into tight little corners or anything. You just pull the trigger and squirt. So I'll set it up to run that, and I'll be able to do the job over here, and hopefully one day we'll get back onto this Ford engine. I'll just come back in a minute and we'll have it turned around with the side cover up, and I'll show you what we did inside. So on the inside here, over here obviously is where your spool goes. Now just today the spool of wire, the insert for here is stuck in the spool of wire, but that doesn't matter, so it just goes on there as normal. Up through your guide here, through your tensioner, through the drive roller, and into the liner, the blue part there. This is the direct connection for the normal torch, comes down and around to this lug. Now in here, it's a bit hard to see, but there's a label in the back here that shows you. At the moment we've got electrode positive and ground negative. To weld gasless wire or flux cord wire, we need to put the ground over here onto the positive, and we need to take this one off, which is for the spool gun, and put this one over here. If we would have had a Euro connection, there's no need to do any of this, but we didn't have a Euro connection, so that's the best alternative that I could come up with, because up in here where the direct connect original torch type mounts, there is no room to put a Euro connection in there. Even the shortest one will not fit in there and tuck in near the drive roller motor assembly here. So the only other way we could do it is we've got to manually switch this over, which you have to do anyway, even without the spool gun. You've got to switch it over from gas to gasless and back anyway, depending on which wire you're using. So now we've got it set up to run gasless wire or flux cord wire. So we have our ground earth is connected to our positive terminal now. We have our normal handpiece, the torch, connected to the negative, so that will be DCEN. The lug that's now down here is the one for the spool gun. It just sits there and does nothing now. We don't need to change any trigger wires over from the spool gun to the handpiece, because that's all accomplished with the toggle switch on the front. As I said, we've got, when the toggle switch is in the center off position, you've got no power to either trigger. When it's up, it's the handpiece, and when it's down, it's the spool gun. So we, as a general rule, leave it in the center position and only turn it on as part of the procedure starting when we're going to start and weld. That way nothing can go wrong, that the triggers can't get bumped or anything like that. Both handpiece and the spool gun both are Binzels, so we use Tweco parts for Binzel torches, which is a bit of a joke, but anyway, there you go, that's what they are. The spool gun is nothing special. It's just a generic spool gun. That one's a Michigan, I think. Come from Total Tools. Michigan is Total Tools in-house brand, with a roll of SIG weld aluminium wire. So nothing special. We can adjust the speed of the drive rollers for the gun here. and just an on-off trigger, just a normal spool gun. If you used one, you know all about them. This one will run wire, ordinary gasless wire as well. We just don't do it because you've got to change the liner in it all the time. So this one's, the spool gun is just set up for doing aluminium work, of which we don't do a lot, but it's there if we need it. And we don't need the spool gun for anything else. Setting up the spool gun was the easiest way for us to do aluminium, instead of trying to change the whole machine over and then having different liners and stuff like that. So hope that helps someone. You can do this to your own welder. Everything that we've done here is perfectly legal because it's all on the DC low voltage side. So you're allowed to change your own torches and things like that. We're not in the AC high voltage side. If it helps someone, good. These things can be done if you've got a little bit of nous and you sort of know what you're doing. But the onus is on you, not on me. Be safe. Thanks for watching.